Hi guys, welcome back to Tiny Chick Pottery. Things might look a little weird here because I got roller skates a couple months back and I'm totally obsessed with roller skating now. And we went on vacation to Destin, Florida, and my nails were so messed up. My fingernails started splitting in layers, and it's due to having my hands in clay so often because I'm teaching all these pottery classes. Looks like I shouldn't be teaching at all, probably. But anyway, my nails were so messed up that, I couldn't even keep nail polish on them because it would just chip off. And I ended up getting these ridiculous fake nails, and they're really long. I figured, oh, I can have them long for vacation. Well, really long. They're like a quarter of an inch past my finger. Anyway, it's ridiculously hard to throw pottery with long fingernails, but I did come up with a solution that sort of works for some of my students. So I'm trying it here. It's a good workaround temporarily, but let me tell you that I kept stabbing the clay with my fingernails accidentally while throwing this gigantic bowl. My video today is of me throwing this enormous bowl. I put like 8 pounds of clay on the wheel, and I centered it. I centered the first half of the clay on the wheel, and then I wedged up another big chunk of clay and placed it directly on top of the originally, centered piece of clay. It worked. I saw somebody do it online, and so I thought it was a good idea, and it worked to center the first group and then put more on and center that. It's about this point that I realized that it's harder to center than I think it is, this like large lump of clay. I don't know if you can tell, but my hands are kind of small. I have long fingers, but my hands themselves are kind of small. I'm not the most muscular person in the world, so I do use this cheat that I call board centering, and I believe that's what they called it down at the studio where Bobby taught me how to do it. So I use this little tiny cutting board, and I just hold it against the clay, and the clay has to move out of the way. Like, you very slowly hold it at an angle to the clay, and I'm basically trying for a cone shape. I don't want the top of it to pull into a volcano, so I start pulling it up over that edge where the volcano would form, and maybe like flattening the top more into a cylinder. But it's really simplifies the process of centering the clay for me so much that my hands wiggling and that sort of thing is sort of eliminated, because I've got the strength of both hands pulling straight against the board, straight towards my core, and meaning the core, my center of my body, strengthen those abs while pulling. It's always a good idea. That board trick, try it. It's amazing. Use a board without splinters in it. That's a bamboo board. Another really important thing to know about board centering is that your board needs to be wet. Just evenly wet with the clay. If your board got really dry, it would grab just like the same way your fingers grab against the clay when you're trying to throw and you hit a dry spot in the clay, and it can totally throw your piece out of balance. Go ahead and wet down the board and then push it against the clay, kind of rounding up into a rounded mound. And then I'm doing, basically, other than that, I'm doing the technique I learned from Tim C. That's Tim space SEE. He's a really amazing potter out of New York, and I watched his videos and I made a chart. Let me see if I can show you a picture of the chart here. Okay, really, it's a doodle, and it really only makes sense to me, but see, you don't really wedge clay with your feet. That was a joke, but most of it is true. It's the basic steps of throwing pottery, and I use this for my classes to kind of like keep track of what stage we're at, because a lot of people talking, a lot going on, and it gets confusing for people, and I can say, we're going to step 5 now, or, step 11, wherever we're at. Well, I don't know if I've told you before or if you're new to the channel, but I am a professional doodler. I draw doodles and get commissions to do them, and sometimes I draw doodles and get to put them onto my pottery, or Sometimes I use a sublimation ink artist who will put the, whoa, wait, what happened? That was my big chunk of clay I just threw on top of the centered part. Now I've got to center the two chunks of clay together. So this is interesting. Never did this before, but you know, it worked. It's really cool. Anyway, sublimation ink is a method of printing onto a finished product. So they have these tumblers that are called blanks, and the tumbler is basically, it's a drink cup with a lid, and sublimation artist uses something like a regular printer, but it's got sublimation ink in it, and they print out the image that I've drawn on my iPad. They print it out onto this special kind of paper. They attach it to the tumbler. The ink faces the tumbler side, and then they heat it up and I think they might even put a chemical on it or something like that. Then it's super durable, and you know, you can wash it. You can't put it in the dishwasher, really. I think that might make the sublimation ink come off eventually. But it's a really cool way to make printed tumblers and things like that. So that's what I do with a lot of my time. I do a lot of drawings, and usually a daily drawing, and then I have people who sort of, I guess you'd call it a sponsorship. So that's what I call them. Each month I ask for new sponsors, and people pay me, and then I tag them every time I make a post. And so every time my post gets out there, it gets seen by hundreds or thousands of people, and there's a clickable link. So I put a clickable link to the person's business Facebook page, and I cannot move my chair. Oh my God, this is so, I don't want to get clay onto the chair. So obviously I'm just like trying to do it with my legs, and that was just the most ridiculous thing ever. Anyway, so I finally got, you know, both lumps of clay on there, and I'm getting ready to start throwing this bowl. Oh my gosh. So today I went back in and trimmed the bowl. Am I ruining it? Is that like a spoiler alert? The bowl actually came out good enough to trim. Okay. I am using, this is a really massive chunk of clay for me. And so I am putting, you know, a lot of pressure down on it to get it down into something I can make a hole in, even having to use the sides of my fist and my, you know, all my body weight to push down on the top there. Also, the clay itself was very stiff. This is a bag that I've had open for a couple weeks, so I think, anyway, so the clay was pretty dry. It's amazing how much more time it takes with this larger chunk of clay. I usually can, you know, throw something in, you know, just a couple minutes. But we're going on. Gosh, I haven't cut this video hardly at all. I mean, just when I'm away from the clay. I'm actually running this in real time, so you can see what this process was like for me. If you're awesome at throwing pottery, yeah, if you're awesome and you have tricks for me, please tell me. So this, I've taken a wooden spatula. I'm leaning it against my cheek to give it extra support, and I'm wetting it, and I'm using that instead of a finger, because if I shove my finger in there with one of these long nails on it, it's just going to gouge the bottom, and it's probably going to hurt a little bit. So I don't want to do it like that. So what I'm doing is I just drive the hole down, and I'm pulling to the side. I'm pulling straight towards my center. And I figured out that if I put the flat side, it's a rectangular handle. I should be using a round handle tool to do this, which I normally do. Sometimes I use a paintbrush, but this was the tool I had handy, so I just grabbed this thing, and it's rectangular. So if I had put the flat side against the wall instead of the narrow side against the wall of the pot that I'm throwing, less clay would have been peeling off, and that would have been a smarter move. And there it goes. It just fell and hit the floor. So I'm on my own now. Now I'm using a knuckle, I think, at the base just to pull that wall out. Now, my dear friend Kay, who teaches throwing, she taught me to throw pottery. Oh, I have to tell you the funniest thing about Kay while we're here. So this last year or the year before or something, there was this pottery throwing contest, and they were short one person. I was in the contest. They were going to have to cancel if they didn't get enough people. So I invited Kay into the pottery throwing contest, and I was second runner up to Kay. So my mother would call that, thanks, George. George the dog is scratching. So yeah, my mother would call that like hoist by your own petard, like caught in your own trap or something like that. She used to say all these really funny idioms and things. So anyway, Kay told me that when she has a student in her class with long fingernails, she has the student use a sponge in each hand and wrap the sponge around the finger to help push down. So that is another method, but I kind of like jamming a stick down the center of the clay. That's just me. And if that works for you or, your students or whatever, then, give it a try. Here, I'm measuring to see how deep the floor of the clay is. And I'm gonna pull this bad boy up here in a minute. So this was yesterday, and I remember having a really hard time smoothing out the floor. For some reason, I just did a really sloppy job of it. I don't know, maybe it's because you're watching. Can I blame you? Because you're basically watching. So I angled it in a bit, and now I'm gonna do the favorite part. This is the best part, to shut up and let you watch. Okay, one more thing. If you are enjoying this video, would you be so kind as to let me know in the comment section and click the like button, and if you want to see more videos that I have for you, you can subscribe. But don't subscribe if you don't plan on watching again. Just, don't pity subscribe, because gosh, I don't need your pity. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, no, totally subscribe. No, really, don't. No, just if you do you. And I hope you're having a great week. And there's more to come, and there's some random roller skating footage at the end because I needed another video clip to finish this out. So enjoy. I'm just going to go ahead and let you watch the throwing now for a minute. And then I'll start talking again in just another minute. So unfortunately, I did have to pop a air bubble that was right up at the edge. It was starting to, I don't know why this happens, but the funny thing about air bubbles, when you get them in the clay, sometimes you're looking at them and they start getting bigger, like while you're looking at them. And I don't know what that's all about. I guess they're proud. They're like puffing up their chests and they're like, hey, look at me, I'm a bubble. I just weakened your wall or whatever. Yeah, that's awesome. Also awesome is that I didn't realize like my ponytail had come undone, and it was like starting to hang down in front of the view, which is really great. And another terrible thing about my hair is I've been finding like my hair is just falling out and it's getting onto the pottery, and it can literally cut right through the side of a piece of pottery. If you have to pull a hair out of your pottery, it can slice through it. So it's better to keep it tied up good and or whatever happens to be the proper grammatical English of it. But yeah, the pot gets sort of a wonky wiggle at this point, but I swear when it's finished, it looked really good. So I have this weird habit of like grabbing whatever's nearby and just using it as a tool. So the spatula thing is kind of funny. I had bought a bunch of cutting boards and a spatula like that, and I had done a sale of pottery in my backyard, and I bought the spatula and the cutting board from this man who has a shop in this small town near me, and he doesn't even have anybody like manning the store. If you want to buy something from his shop, you basically take the thing from his shop and walk 2 doors down to where his daughter's cutting hair, and you pay the man there for it because he doesn't want to like manage a shop and be in the store. So he just leaves the shop full of merchandise that he's made at home. Like he glues boards together, and he like cuts out these crazy shapes like armadillos and pigs and stuff in the shape of Texas, and rectangular cutting boards. Some, not the cutting board that I used there, but yeah, the spatula thing, the wooden tool, that was one of the things I found in his shop. And it's great for like if you're hand building a piece of pottery, like a mug or something. Say you hand build a mug and you want to whack the sides of it to thin out the walls and smooth it. It's like the perfect paddle. So I have 2 of these things that I bought from him. And one of them, I guess I bought 3. And one of them I sanded really well and smoothed it. And then I coated it with a mixture of olive oil and beeswax. And I will melt olive oil and beeswax and mix them together and make a cutting board polish, basically. So I polished this stuff up, and I sold a couple things that I bought from the guy. I basically finished out his woodwork and then resold it, and that was cool. But I kept those 2 spatulas to use for the pottery, and they're not even really like a finished spatula. Like a finished spatula should have kind of a more pointy edge. They work great for pottery. So don't go out there into the world thinking, hey, I'm going to buy one of these wooden paddles somewhere. You're not going to find it. It's this random thing that, like, I don't even know if I could find again if I went out to his shop, which is in Brock, Texas, if you're wondering where this crazy shop that's completely unmanned. And it's west of where I live. And my studio is in Hudson Oaks, Texas. And it's just a small, it's basically it's a metal building that I'm in where a whole bunch of people store their boats. It's basically a storage unit with electric and light. And Robin and I rent this space. We share it. I have one side, she has the other. She has camps and classes for kids, and she teaches like how to make alcohol ink mugs and different painting techniques and things like that. She's got some art students. And I have some pottery students. Let me be real heartfelt with you here and say the reason why I have pottery students is just to pay the rent. Like, I take my sponsorships and I put it together with my the money I make from my pottery classes, and together, I mean, that's the rent money. And so it covers me having this gorgeous, glorious space. Don't worry, this bowl gets better. I can see now, looking at the side wall, I can see that warped edge, but I fixed that in a little bit. Don't judge me. Okay, so this is a little hard for me because I usually show clips from my throwing videos where if I throw pottery, like I'll show you the best parts where nothing goes wrong, or only I show you that something goes wrong when it goes catastrophically wrong. But it's hard to look at it and share it and just go like, this is my whole process and I'm slow at it. And I fuss over it and I make it take a long time, and I am not a production potter. So I'm not doing a massive pile of work. I just want to make some stuff because it makes me happy and just for the sheer joy of making stuff. And I sell it because I want to buy more supplies and do it again. I don't have this kind of goal in mind. I don't think pottery is going to make me rich or famous or anything like that. I'm just doing it for the joy of it. I like to open up the pottery kiln and see something beautiful come out. This bowl, however, is not going to fit in my micro pottery kiln. I'm sure you've seen my kiln before. If you've watched this channel before, I've shown it. It's so small. It will not hold a 12-inch bowl because it only has 12 inches across or 11 inches across the inside. So I now take my pottery to a studio in Arlington, Texas, where I use their filing services. And I pay a fee, and I fill up the thing, and there's my bowl. There's my bowl. So I will probably even have to have this bisque fired over in Arlington because I can't even bisque fire it in my kiln. Try to weigh it at this point, which is really funny because this is the wrong scale. If I was really going to weigh this, I'd have to put it on a food scale with the numbers on the front instead of on the top where I can't see it at all. So I keep trying to trick the scale into letting me see it really quick, and the only weight that I saw, it said 5.5 pounds, and I'll tell you, I think that is more than 5.5 pounds of clay. I think it's probably closer to 8 pounds right now. Not sure exactly because I was not able to trick the scale. But if I had to start this one again, I'd put 8 pounds of clay on the wheel and give it another try, just to make one about the same size. And another thing I didn't think about when throwing a large bowl,
5.5 pounds.
which I didn't even consider until I was ready to take it off the bat. The distance around, not really the circumference, I mean actually, the distance across the top is 12 inches. My bats that I'm using on my wheel are only 11-inch bats. To turn this bowl upside down and trim it, I need a bat that's larger or exactly the same size as the bowl itself. So what am I gonna do? Well, here, I'll show you. Okay, so I had bought a 16-inch circle. It's kind of like a round tabletop thing. I bought it at the hardware store, and then I was using it as a tabletop outside, and it got rained on, and it warped, so I didn't have it. So this strange square of wood was left over from when I was having the studio built before, and I had to have the sink put in. This is the square the man cut out of the top of the fake sink. This is the square of wood that was left over. So I filled a little place where he had to drill into it to run the saw blade down into it like a jigsaw, so he could cut out just the shape out of the center. I filled that with clay, and I flipped that bowl upside down on it, and I mounted it to the wheel head with a hunk of clay. I just stuck a hunk of clay on the wheel and then like pulled it out like I was making a dinner plate, and like made a flat plateau of clay, and I shoved that board down on top of it, and then I centered the bowl upside down on it. And so I could keep talking and babbling on. I'm just in the background showing you some roller skating video to just cover up that space so I could explain. Just didn't have any video to show you right there. I guess I just have some stupid roller skating video in here that makes no sense. So enjoy my random. I hope you do. And if you like random, I have a whole other channel full of random stuff. But anyway, I made this tiny little bowl on a miniature pottery wheel, which I have shown in other videos. And I have no idea why I'm showing you this footage. That is the end of my footage on my trimmed out gigantic, like, I don't know, 8 or 5 pound bowl or whatever it is. I'll have to keep you posted later about how big that bowl is and how it comes out, and I hope you enjoyed this. And just for the heck of it, to finish out this video, I will show you some of my recent artwork that I drew on the iPad. My skates, some peaches. I made this one into a vinyl sticker, which they're so popular these days with the kids. I drew this car that a local guy owns. It's worth about $1 million. This is a sampling of some more of my daily doodles. That's what the sticker looks like. It's available on my website, and I have lots of them, and sales of stickers and stuff help me support the studio. And I'll get you a coupon code if you just want to buy stickers. Yeah, so you don't have to pay shipping.